Hi everyone, it's Roger here from What's on Disney Plus, and welcome to this week's live Q&A. So big hello and welcome to everyone joining. You can see quite a few people already here in the live chat. We got Miles, we got Bubba Trolling, we got Babak, we've also got Sosuna, we've also got Matt, and a big hello and welcome to I'll try and pronounce that one there. Emerald. Okay, thank you very much for becoming a member. Yeah, I can't pronounce that one. But anyway, so each and every week I answer questions that have been submitted in advance from Patreon and YouTube channel members. Also, YouTube channel members are also able to join in right now on the live chat, and they can join in. So if you're watching on afterwards, so big thank you as well for joining us here. So we can also use the super chat function, which you can send in any questions, and those will go straight to the top of the queue to be dealt with. And again, all of which, being a Patreon or YouTube channel member or using the super chat function, all help support the YouTube channel, help support the website, all of which is purely available, done pretty much because of you guys visiting and watching these videos. So again, a big thank you to everyone for joining. So what I'll be doing is I will be jumping in between some of the pre-done questions and the live chat and interacting with the live chat as well. So feel free to become a member. You can do so from as little as a couple of bucks a month, all of which help support it. Like I said, got lots of different questions and stuff today. So let's jump into the top one. So Khaled asks, Nintendo has announced that they will shut down the Hulu app on Switch devices beginning this February. Do you believe this will be the slow phase out of the standalone Hulu app? So let's start off with the basics here. So Hulu is going to be shutting down at some point in 2026 in the United States. Obviously, internationally, we've already got the Hulu already part of Disney Plus, and this is really what Disney Plus is looking to do, is to be how it is around the rest of the world, because Disney knows that one single streaming service is a lot more cost effective to run. Now they've got rid of Comcast last year, that they no longer own a portion of it. They're going to be integrating it. Now, as far as the Hulu app, they have said it's going to be closing down, and so we don't know when that's going to be. It could be very early this year. It could be late. Who knows? I also would expect them that what they'll probably likely do is have maybe like they're going to announce they're merging, but keep the Hulu app around for a couple of months, whatever it is, just to kind of get the last few stragglers to move over to Disney Plus. So we've seen over the last few years, Disney has been really integrating Hulu into Disney Plus. We've really seen that with obviously the launch of the Hulu hub and more content being released through the Hulu side. And really kind of in the last sort of 6 months, really, once they kind of got rid of Comcast as a co-owner of Hulu, we've really started seeing the Hulu on Disney Plus logo being used a lot more. And that's now the main part of their advertising. And they're being much more open about that being the case. So ultimately, they know that they're going to be closing down the Hulu app. And so on the Nintendo Switch, they're going to be losing the app at the beginning of February. I believe it's the 5th. So there's two chains of thought to this. First off, let's just talk about the app slowly being phased out. I would be not at all surprised if they start phasing out the app on certain devices, which are going to start costing money to maybe upgrade or keep updated, or they're going to spend money. They're going to start kind of anything that doesn't need to be supported. And I wouldn't be too surprised if they do look at the numbers and go like, right, okay, what apps are not being used enough? Is it worthwhile keeping this on? Because here's the other thing. Say there's only 100 people using the Nintendo Switch app to watch Hulu. They might be going, look, it's just there's not enough people on here to warrant spending the money to keep it updated. They probably have to pay Nintendo money to keep it on the eShop, and they'll take, I expect there's some kind of cut in there. So you're going to start seeing them like trimming maybe the older platforms first, because that would make sense, wouldn't it? Just to kind of but there might also be another thing with the Hulu situation with the Nintendo Switch, and that might be more how many people are using the Hulu app on the Nintendo Switch, because there's not a lot of streaming services available on the Nintendo Switch. It is an old device. You know, we've already seen the Nintendo Switch 2. The Switch came out many years ago. There's not a lot of streaming services on there. Disney Plus isn't on there. I don't think Netflix is. So people aren't really using the Switch for watching streaming anyway, because they don't really have a lot of the device. So there might just be not a lot of usage, and there's not a lot of point in basically keeping a device which is now kind of legacy and maybe isn't just worthwhile. That might have happened even if Hulu wasn't shutting down anyway. They might have been that all right. It might have been a decision that was going to be made. maybe Nintendo are going to get, kind of easing off of what they're putting in there. So there's two ways of looking at it. Maybe from the Nintendo side, that it's just not worthwhile, and that might have been happening regardless of the Hulu Disney Plus situation. But again, it would be nice to kind of get a little bit of clarity of what's going to be happening with Hulu, a kind of a time frame. Again, I'm expecting it more that it might kick in September time, but they might go early. They could go any time. One day we could just get an announcement. If I was to guess, it might be one of those more of an announcements that get made during a quarterly investors call. They put out the information, then it reaches a bigger audience. They can then, say, like, okay, Hulu and Disney Plus together are going to cost the same price as this bundle that already exists. That way they don't get any hit for like any negativity for the price going up. And because there's only $1 in it, I think that's not going to be a problem. But also fundamentally, they can just, it's already built into the system. So I think that's my gut on that one. Just looking here at some of the questions. Kelly said, I use the Hulu app on the Roku, Switch, and PS4. I would say the Roku is the best option since it's tailor-made for TV viewers. I only use the mobile app to check what's new, and that's it. That makes sense. That would make sense on that one. Knoxville says, I wish they could add streaming apps on the Switch too. Do they have any streaming apps on the Switch 2? I did decide not to bother buying the Switch 2. I didn't really feel like I had only got rid of my Switch last year. I decided that I hadn't really used it enough in the last few years. It was gathering a lot of dust, and I don't really use it. And when I was going away on holiday once or twice a year, I just wasn't really using it. So I didn't really need the whole on-the-go kind of things. Babak says, I have a Switch and never used the app to watch Hulu. Again, I don't think it was the best app, the device to use it on, because if you're going to be watching it on the big screen, you're probably going to use something else. Barbatronic says, I think Disney's going to close the PS4 and Xbox One Hulu apps. Yeah, I mean, again, that would make sense depending on how many people are using it. I mean, Xbox One, as anyone, I mean, they're not really getting anything else. So, I mean, Xbox kind of, and also Xbox One, it's pretty old as well. So, yeah, I mean, that generation would make sense to kind of to kick that off. Matt says, what about Hulu in Japan? What's going to happen? And Matt Kelly then said, Hulu Japan is still owned by Nippon, hence why the Star brand still exists in Japan. I mean, they have got a bundle in place, but yeah, they're just kind of keeping rolling as it is for that one. Keenan says, I don't really game. I have been playing video games for 40 plus years. I love video games. I usually try and get about an hour in a night. At the minute, generally, I've been playing Madden. I did buy the new 26 Madden after Christmas because I basically always wait till around this time of the year where it drops down considerably in price just before the Super Bowl. Right, I think I don't really value the Madden's changed enough to warrant me paying it. However, when WWE rolls around, I get it the day it comes out with a collector's edition with every bit of DLC going. But I tend to play that a lot. I just went through the Star Wars Renegades campaign. I finished that off a couple of nights ago. So I'm just kind of having a couple of nights of playing around with some different games. I think I was playing Planet Coaster 2 on the place. I just been, was it Warhammer Chaos something? I've just been playing around with some different games this last week or two. Okay, let's see what else we've got here. Babak says, we just realized we have stickers. Yeah, you got little cartoon versions of me. I did them a few years ago, but hardly anyone ever used it. It was one of those things of I paid an artist to do them because I thought, let's get them done properly. I mean, they're kind of cool. I do like them. Bobatronic says, it's bittersweet for me that Hulu is going to close down. I like Hulu, but I know it's not what it was, and Disney Plus needs to be profitable to keep Wall Street happy. I think the trouble is, obviously, America's got a lot more connection with Hulu because it's been around a while. But I do think Disney Plus is going to be stronger with Hulu. Hulu and Disney Plus together are so much stronger because then you've got all the Disney content from Marvel and Star Wars, but also more importantly, I think like the 20th Television and the FX studios will really help keep the adults engaged with that app because they already do. Whereas, I think their big problem was Marvel and Star Wars wasn't enough. They couldn't keep just plying out those shows in order to keep adults engaged. Because you hear it a lot, especially from Americans, about, well, there's nothing on there for adults except for Marvel and Star Wars. And that was always the big problem. They tried doing a load of kids or sort of TV shows for the family, like Turner and Hooch and the basketball one and stuff. They just never really, the audience doesn't exist anymore, I don't think, in the same way. Matt says, I think once Hulu merges with Disney Plus, how long do you think digital will keep standalone Hulu app running? Again, I think it'll be 3 to 6 months. Matt says, do you think people want to subscribe for Disney Plus want to lose merge as they just want it for kids? I think there is, and I think this is a key thing. There is an audience of people that think of Disney Plus and think of Disney as just for kids. It's a kids platform, and that's all it should be used for. And that kind of, like, I would say 3, 4, 5 years ago, that was a really big thing because Disney Plus that's what it was. But I think what Disney have done a really good job at was the introduction of the Hulu on Disney Plus, and obviously the introduction of Hulu and ESPN on Disney Plus, was slowly get people away from the idea that that's what they needed. That's what Disney Plus was. And it was all about that slow drip feed of making it look like, you had that initial, and you still get the odd person going, oh, you got like, this movie next to this things. And usually you see that. And then everyone in the comments pretty much flames them straight away, kind of going, and what's your, it's like, it's not this big bit. They've managed for the last 2 years to blur the line so much with the Hulu stuff that a lot of the complaints and the problems have kind of burnt out now. There's not, and anyone that's like, I only want it for kids, well, that's up to you at the end of the day. If you don't want it because of this, then you need to use parental controls. And more importantly, every other streaming service does this. So, it's like Disney needs to have that mature content in order to compete with the other ones. And I think having 2 separate apps was not good long term. And also, it's been like this for, here in the UK, it's been like it for nearly 5 years. So it's not like it's something that kind of is anything new to me. Kelly says, I do believe it's a slow phase out with the console apps being the first to go and then connected devices like Fire Stick and Roku. I think it would make sense, if I was kind of easing it out, I'd probably be along the lines of, okay, here is the date that we're closing it. And that's going to be when we have a cut-off date and everyone has to be off. And again, I'd be looking through the stats and going, right, who are the biggest ones? I'm guessing Fire Stick and Roku are probably very high. I would be like, okay, we keep them going as long as we can. Whereas maybe if you've got a device on some devices that aren't being used as much, is it? And more importantly, I think there's going to come to that point of, because it does cost money to keep updating it, sending it in for new checks for the new versions. How much, and do they want to keep investing in now in that Hulu app? Because I would say now, they're not going to be investing in any kind of major tweaks or changes to it. They're just going to, just kind of leave it off. So Suna says, do you think the Hulu app will be gone by February or March? No, I think it will be a lot. I think it will be a lot later than that. I think it will definitely be a lot later for that. Barbuck says, what do you think about vertical videos? So I did do a video on this earlier in the week. I get it. I do get what they're doing. And I think it makes sense, especially if you're for mobile device users. If you're flicking through on your phone at a break time, you might click in there, flick through it, go into Disney Plus, flick through and see some stuff. I don't know if that's ever really going to be able to compete with social media, but I get it. I do get it. I'm not convinced really on the big screen that it's worthwhile. I'm not really convinced that that's going to be the best place for it. I know when I watch like YouTube shorts on my big TV, because I tend to watch a lot of YouTube really on my big TV, shorts don't really work for me because I want something a bit more long form. But I'm not opposed to it. I know it makes sense from the point of view of engagement. And if you don't want to watch vertical videos on Disney Plus, you don't have to. But also, more importantly, I don't think it's, I would imagine that it's not going to be something that'll be quite as intense and being shown on the big screens and the bigger, if you're watching it, like I said, if you're watching Disney Plus on your phone, it would make sense that vertical becomes a little bit more on the front. So I get it. I don't have I don't really, I wouldn't say as a negative thing. I think I get it. I think I can understand the reasonability for doing it. Let's just see if we've got any other live questions before we jump back into the pre-done questions. Knoxwave says, what do you think of the cast for the Tangled? Milo. I mean, I've seen Milo in a few different shows and zombies and stuff. It'll be interesting to see if he can make that jump up to being lead actor and become like a main, rather than just like a supporting actor. And so I think this is a really good opportunity for him. I don't really know the girl, to be fair. I don't think I've seen her in anything. So I mean, it'll be interesting. I think it's always difficult with these kind of characters. I think it's some, and I also think the trouble is, again, with like Tangled, there was a lot of expectations of who might play it. We've seen so many like castings over the years, but I don't know. I'll just wait and see. Milo seems like he might be, and he's obviously getting older and he's getting more experience. Yeah, and Disney are going to have people on hand to really help him with that. Matt says, what do you think about MTV shutting down its TV channels? I'm not surprised. I mean, I grew up as an MTV generation. Used to watch MTV all the time. I remember going to New York City, Times Square, and they had they used to film MTV right on Times Square, and I remember seeing like Kid Rock and NSYNC and Elijah Wood and looking through the window and performing. It was a big thing. And then there was a time when the only way you could watch music videos was either like Chart Show TV, Top of the Pops, or MTV. It was very much kind of a way of watching it. And I think I grew up with watching a lot of MTV, and also not necessarily just MTV, but just music television as a whole. Now you can all watch a music video from anyone like that, and when we had like the box, all those channels, they're just YouTube's just made it obsolete. You just don't need it anymore. So I get it, and I think MTV's kind of been cruising along. I do think Paramount are going to try and find something to do with it. I mean, I think MTV still has a brand, but then again, do younger people have that connection with it? I don't know. Maybe it's just something to let it go. But I don't know. I mean, I personally would have thought, they could have done something with that brand, but it doesn't look like they did it. Keenan says, unfortunately, the Packers lost last night. So they were leading as the fourth game quarter. Sorry to hear your team. I literally, and I'm not joking, I have the Jaguars versus the Buffalo Bills score just next to me. I'm just checking. So they're at Jaguars are down 3.7 to 10. So I'm hoping that the Jaguars go through, because it's typical that after there's so many bad performances, they're coming back now. Miles says, regarding the upcoming live action for Tango, do you think like How to Train Your Dragon remake from last year will be shot on location? I think they'll probably do a lot more. I think also to keep the costs down, and I think it looks better. I think the trouble with all this green screen stuff, it doesn't age very well. Babak says, do you think Disney will launch Disney Plus apps on more devices like the Switch, or do you think they'll be more selective? The Switch is old now. Switch 2 maybe, but again, the trouble is that why aren't they already on there? Why haven't they been on there? There must be a reason for this, and that might be why it's not there. I think it makes sense for Disney Plus to be on as many devices as possible, but there has to be something really big in place. Maybe Nintendo want a huge cut of the monthly subscription cost, and it's just not financially viable. That's my only thing I could think of why it won't be on there. Matt says, do you think we'll have any major changes when they had Hulu and Disney Plus? I don't think so. I think we've already seen the big chunk of it, because we've already seen them upgrade Disney Plus to having all the Hulu side in there. The big questions really to me is going to be what they do with Hulu plus live TV. Are they going to merge it in with Fubo and then make Fubo part of Disney Plus as well? Yeah. Ricardo says, I've seen news that the Hulu app is closing between April and May. I don't know where all this stuff's coming from. The trouble is, again, there's a lot of he said, she said. I've seen a lot of articles and social media posts taking the Nintendo Switch news and playing it off as a bit of clickbait of kind of making out that Hulu's starting to be Hulu's being shut down in February. And it's like, oh yeah, you just mastered the miss out the Nintendo part, the Switch part of it. And it's irked me a little bit of seeing a lot of just the way that unfortunately websites are having to run at the minute because of the way that the Google algorithm is. There's a lot of spinning going on to try and get people to click on links, which is really annoying. But again, I don't know if that came out of CES. I've been trying to find some information. Haven't seen anything from that. Bubba says Milo's been some bigger movies too, but it's definitely going to be his biggest role. Definitely going to be his biggest role. Clicking here, going back in. So Miles says, with the Super Bowl and the Winter Olympics only a month away, how could Disney launch their marketing blitz for upcoming films like Hopper's, Mando's, Toy Story, and Doomsday? I mean, while I get maybe doing a Doomsday teaser trailer during the Super Bowl, I think actually I'm thinking that they might have not do that and they might go with Spider-Man instead. Sony might drop the Spider-Man trailer during that. I just watched Madam Web this afternoon for the first time. Oof, that was a bit rough. So yeah, I'm thinking they might go Spider-Man for the Marvel side and leave Avengers because it's still 9-10 months out. It's a long way away, and you got Spider-Man before it. Hoppers makes sense because the Hoppers is the next big film coming out. And Mandalorian and Grogu, I think that would make sense to drop the next big trailer. I think, again, you think of how much money these trailers are. That might be when they push the button on, starting to promote Disney Plus and Hulu together. That might be another thing that they could do, more of a generic one. But they're not going to advertise everything. Keenan says, Disney has announced casting leads for live action. Could we expect more details at the D23 in August? Yes, 100%. Babatroni says, do you think the rise of piracy with young demographics of sports will make media companies rethink their approach to offering sports as a premium add-on like Disney is doing? Yes. Piracy is definitely starting to pick up steam as there's too many streaming services. They're all costing more. And yeah, you are getting that pushback. You're always going to have an element of it. And people crying about the fact that it all costs too much and everything should be free. And, there's a certain kind of, sometimes a little bit of entitlement to get the fact of some of this idea of everything being really cheap. And I should be able to get everything, cheap and free. But I also can see how, especially with sports, the cost of it really makes it prohibited. You see a lot of this, like here in the UK, get a lot of sports on TNT. It's like watching NFL. I've done the NFL, the Game Pass. It's expensive. I've not done it this year. I've just been catching up on the odd game on the clips and then a little bit of free stuff on Fire. And I think that's the same thing for everyone. There is a limit to how much sports stuff you're willing to subscribe to. I do think with ESPN, I'm not entirely convinced this $30 add-on, they're going to have to keep spending a lot of money on sports. But we could end up seeing the opposite thing happening where Netflix and Amazon might do this for a few years and then realize they're spending way too much money on sports and it's not delivering, and then could start pulling back, and therefore that's when ESPN could start picking up a bit more. I have a feeling Netflix and Amazon, etc., and Apple, they're in they're playing in the game, but they might get to a point of going, yeah, okay, but then also maybe some of these sports divisions are going to have to get used to getting paid less. Keenan says, what are your thoughts on Disney Plus integrating vertical videos? So I did just answer that question already, so I'll leave that one. Mara says, could Avengers Doomsday have an intermission halfway through if it's an estimated 3 hours and 45 minutes? Keenan, you also asked a very similar question where you asked, I heard that Avengers Doomsday is going to be 3 hours, 45 minutes. Isn't that too long for a film since Avengers films back to back? How does this affect the box office now? So, yes. Let's break this down in a couple of different ways. So first off, if it is 3 hours and 45 minutes long, I'm hoping they have an intermission, because I'm going to lie, I'm going to need a pee. I mean, Avatar, I think was 3 hours, and I think they did run out for a pee. So there is going to be a problem. I think if it's 3.5 hours long, I do think an intermission is probably going to be for the best, because that's long. However, and they've also, I would imagine they've got a lot of story to tell, because, well, they've not really done a very good job of building up to this. You know, we've seen Doom pop up in one post-credit scene. So they might have a much bigger story that they need to tell to kind of get it out there. However, here's the other thing. This 3.5 hours runtime, where's that come from? Who's saying this? The movie doesn't come out for nearly a year. They have still got to do reshoots. So all this numbers coming up, I mean, they're literally, and this does feel a little bit like internet scoopers just pulling random numbers out of their butts and just throwing them up on the internet, because, well, if I put out enough times, someone's going to be right at some point. Oh, it's going to be 3 hours. It's going to be 3 hours and 10 minutes. It's going to be 3.5 hours. It's going to be 2.5 hours. They're going to change their tweets so many times. So I would definitely, at the moment, I actually did delete my Twitter app off my phone this week. I've had enough I still will use Twitter for work, but I've got it on the browser here. So if I'm not doing work at my computer, I'm not going to be on Twitter. I've just had enough of it, because it is just so much false information. It's just become all, and this stuff with Avengers and all. We've got another year of this just constant drivel coming out. We do not know the runtime of Avengers. Marvel doesn't know the runtime yet. It's not coming out for 12 months. They don't know the runtime yet, because they haven't finished filming parts of it. They haven't, the editing and the special, it's like, this is just essentially a load of rubbish just being thrown out there. And I do think, us as fans have to start questioning some of this stuff. I know we're hungry. If this news came out like 2 to 3 weeks before the film came out, I'd probably be like, oh, that could be happening. Not a year out. Not when they still got reshoots to do. This is just too early. This is, again, there's too much false information being able to be made money from engagement bait on social media for all this stuff just to come in. Again, if the movie's not out for a year, they wouldn't have the edit yet to fit. They don't know how long it's going to be. As I said, it doesn't make a lot of sense for that to be the case. Let's see what we've got here. Catherine Aaliyah says Catherine Ham might be Mother Gothel by the trades if it happens. It'll be off. Yeah, I think it'll be good. I think she'll be good at that. Noxo says, I heard the rumor that Marvel chose not to move forward with the Blade movie. I think that's a good thing. I mean, I think there was rumors of a Midnight Suns movie. I think we're going to need to see for Marvel a few more team up movies. If we're going to get less, we need team up movies, because there's, and I also, as Marshall Ali, I mean, again, he was old. He was, I say old. He was the same age as me when they announced it. He's now 6-7 years older. I don't think putting a superhero for his first time on the big screen in their 50s. I'm sorry, I just don't think that's a good idea. If you want to do Blade, you need someone in their 30s. And I think it's time to let this one go. I think Marvel have been trying to hold out on this for a while. Yeah. I'm as long as they put Blade into it, but that might be the only way they can do it. But I think Blade just isn't going to work. Kenny says, remember the Wii U having a bunch of video streaming apps? Yeah, again, I think they did, but that Wii U just flopped. Matt says, do you think Nicolas Cage will play Ghost Rider? No, I don't think he'll be doing it. Matt says, do you think Sony's going to do more Spider-Man movies like Madam Web and Venom? No, I think so. I think Sony will be very much aware of the fact that they lost a lot of money on Madam Web and Morbius and Kraven the Hunter, and I think even the last Venom movie, which wasn't very good. They know that it's not working. Superhero fatigue is here. Superhero fatigue is something that they've got to deal with, and I think Sony really made it worse because they were just churning out rubbish and didn't really help. I think Sony need to team up with Marvel for Spider-Man and let Spider-Man be Spider-Man. Yeah, that Madam Web movie was just dire. Kez says, I believe they'll do a Doomsday trailer during the NBA Finals and NHL Stanley Cup Finals. It would make sense. Madam Web will return in Doomsday. I hope not. That last scene, oh my word, was that bad? That was so bad. And they were just so stiff. Not to, it's nice to see that Spider-Man No Way Home is on Disney Plus in the Middle East countries. Yeah, it's nice to see them getting that going. Kelly says, speaking of sports, select MLB teams have opted out of their contracts with FanDuel's RSNs. This came off the heels of the Zone deal falling apart since the Zone did not want to overpay the rights fee. Again, the trouble is with this sports stuff. I think the US system is a little bit different with all this RSNs. I'll be honest, I'm not too familiar with that because that was a little bit of a different, but that whole RSN model has just collapsed because it might still work for like New York and LA and Chicago, but that local market has just collapsed. People aren't watching cable through that in the same way. And the trouble is the teams have kind of got used to that money and now they're kind of having to change their methods. I think Disney, they were forced to sell a load of RSNs when they bought Fox or 20th Century Fox, so they kind of got out of that well. But I do think there is a limit to how much these networks are going to be willing to pay. Aaliyah says there's an excellent theory that Disney Plus ESPN is waiting to see how the other streamers decide with sports in a few years, depending on that, it determines if ESPN is complementary or not. I think we're going to see ESPN Plus or ESPN Basic, whatever they call it. I think that will get eliminated. I think they'll move some of it over to Disney Plus as some free content, and then some of it will just move into ESPN Unlimited. I bet they're going to look at the numbers and start going, how many people do we have on ESPN Plus, the old version, and how many people are on the unlimited tier? And it will get to a point where if enough people have fully upgraded, that it won't be worth doing the cheap option, and therefore that's when they can simplify the amount of options they offer, where they offer Disney Plus and Disney Plus with ESPN Unlimited, and they can do ad version of Disney Plus and a non-ad version, and really simplify those tiers down a lot. Kelly says, if Avengers Doomsday exceed 2 hours, I think it's definitely going to be over 2 hours. I remember when we watched War 2 at Regal last summer, they had a 15 intermission. I remember, I mean, this showed how old it was. I remember going and seeing Back to the Future Part 3, and it was at this tiny little cinema. I mean, literally, and this is how bad it was. It had one screen, and at the beginning of the movie, the owner came out and asked us, we had to vote on which movie we could watch, because it was either one movie or the other. Back to the Future luckily won. The other movie we weren't going to go see. And he then ran in, opened it up, did the tickets. He then came in. He came in at halfway point, and I just still remember that. But I do think intermissions. I can't remember which one was it. Pirates of the Caribbean or Lord of the Rings, where they did do one. I'm hoping I think it was a good idea on it. I think anything going close to 3 hours, I think it's a good idea to do an intermission. Okay, I respect the comic book movie scoopers more if they put their face out there, like with pro wrestling dirt sheets have their face out there, like SLS and Dave Meltzer. Yeah, I think there's that part of it as well, isn't it? Of I'll be honest, I find it very difficult to, random Marvel guy 28 says that, Marvel Avengers are going to be 3 hours and a half. Okay, but then random dog name 62. So that's like I can't get that right. I mean, obviously Dave Meltzer does make there's a lot of stuff that comes through, but yeah, not having that, just going by there's a few there like Toast and a few other ones where you do it. I'm always a bit like, okay, it's a bit like what's on Disney Plus. It's the name of the website, it's there, but you guys, you see my name at the bottom of the articles with my little picture, and you see me in the videos. Therefore you have that thing of I'm putting myself out there that coming in, and I won't and I'm not just making stuff up randomly just to get clicks. Ilya says, with Prevez, Marvel might have a general idea, but plus or minus 30 minutes more exact to the minute of that, I doubt it. Noxwave says if Doomsday is 3 hours 45 minutes, I hope where I live they give us a 15-minute break. But also as well, the snacks, because this is the thing as well. Is if I've got, I know when I went to see Avatar last month, I knew it was a 3-hour movie, so I literally went in with, my soda and my Milky Bar buttons that I took, sneaking. I'm not paying their prices. And I remember getting to the end of the movie, and I still had like half my Coke left because I was literally like tiny little sip, because I was like, there was no chance if I just drank that in that first, there's no way I was going to make it. And I know in America, you guys like your big, you got your big of soda. Yeah, no chance. But also, if I had a 15-minute break, I'd go get a drink, and I would probably go to the cashier, go and buy maybe an ice cream, because I knew then I would have 10 minutes, especially in my cinema, because it's tiny. I mean, I imagine it might be difficult from their point of view of having like a couple 100, 200 people go into the concession stands, but they'd make more money out of it. What do you think of the map of the middle reboot? Do you mean Malcolm in the Middle? There we go. It looked okay. I'll give it a go. I mean, like I said, I haven't watched Malcolm in the Middle for 20 plus years. It'd be nice to give it a go. I like the fact there's 4 episodes. I'm in. I will give episode 1 a go, and if I like it, that'll be it. Ricardo says there's a report that Sony will let Marvel use its Spider-Man characters however they want, so they can focus on PlayStation IP that they truly are. Well, the trouble is, I think with this is Sony got a little bit like, they got so dependent on the Spider movies, and now that that's all not really working, that's a problem. So I definitely think that is an issue that that Sony's got to work on. But also, not being reliant on one character is pretty difficult. Yeah, I think it would make sense. Matt says, I remember the Titanic intermission. Yes. Yeah, I think there was I remember buying Titanic on VHS, and it had to come on 2 because it was that long. Ricardo says, Madam Web is a huge guilty pleasure. Yes, it's bad, but I'm a sucker for most of the female cast, especially Dakota Johnson and the new Isabella Marcet, who is Peruvian as me. Yeah, because I didn't realize, because that's what's it, Hawk Girl. I didn't realize she was in it actually. I mean, Sydney Sweeney. I mean, she barely did anything in it. I mean, the fact of them, they must have only been in their costumes for like 30 seconds and just Dakota. She just was so unlikable. Keenan says, I've never heard of a 15 intermission movie before. If they do intermissions, then Avatar should be done. It used to be something that I think us Odies used to have a lot more. They used to have intermissions in movies, but they kind of got rid of them. They have been getting, the last 20, 25 years, there's been a lot less of them. Leah says, one of the reasons why I'm seeing less movies in theatre now is I'm getting older. My bladder. I also feel I've wasted money and time if I have to run to the restroom and miss. There is that part of it, and I do think that's a big problem for older viewers. And that's just, not necessarily, we're old, but it is part of it. I think there is that thing of being able to watch a movie at home in the comfort of your sofa with your snacks. You can pause it to go to the loo, let the dog out. And I think I always put this down to as well of we have big screen TVs, good sound systems. You can enjoy a movie at home. 20, 30 years ago, if you're watching a movie on a 20-inch television in 20, basically in 360p, kind of probably worse than that. It wasn't the same as going to the cinema, and like people can't quite understand. Trying to just say to some youngsters now, I'm kind of going, oh yeah, there was a time that I've always had television, but like my parents grew up in an era where you didn't have television, and if you wanted to go watch Pinocchio, you had to wait for it to be, it's very weird. Keenan also says, don't forget that people goon on their phones in the future. Okay, yeah, definitely. I don't want to go down that line. Kelly says, I'm learning a technique regarding cinemas about limiting intake prior to films and hydrating through the film. Also use the restroom on arrival. Yep, that's definitely one thing to do. That's definitely something to be I think there's that kind of thing of, I know with Avatar, I was like, oh, they were getting ready, and you could tell with the storyline that there was a moment where I'm going, okay, they're getting ready for the big final battle, but they're going to have a bit of a chat first, so I can quickly run off. To me, the missions never work because everybody else is going to the bathrooms at also. Yeah, I think it depends. I mean, if you've got a busy cinema and you've got everyone doing that, that's going to be really difficult. Yeah, I mean, again, I think that it's. I mean, I always think of when you have an intermission at a theater, when I go see like a comedy show or a major show, and you have that intermission, or wrestling, they have the intermission, and there's suddenly thousands of people trying to go to the toilet at the same time. It is crazy, and there is that kind of thing of, I know, like you go to a wrestling event and you'd be like, right, okay. You wait for a match and you're going, right, I either have to go during the match or during an entrance or a match that you're maybe not interested in because you don't want to have to go through the intermission. That used to be and it's horrible to say now, but it was, it was always like, I remember going to, it was always the women's match was when a load of people would go to the loo. Not so much. I don't think you get that so much because the women wrestlers are so much better. That's so much better now that they are actually really good matches. But there was that time when I remember when back in the 90s, they just weren't at that level. And so the minute they started coming out, half the people would go to the loo. Leah says those live action movies didn't have Spider-Man, even from another universe. Mode the law was convoluted more than Marvel was faithful. Audience caught on their waste of time. I think that's the big thing, is that was the trouble with people. People were able to sniff out that it wasn't important and they weren't very good. Some people sleep. So I remember when last month with Avatar, the movie ended. When I got up and turned around, there was this old lady asleep. She didn't make it through it. I think I went to see. Actually, I think it was Avatar: Way of Water. I went to a press screening in London, and I'm sat there watching it, and suddenly this guy, because we had these big leather chairs, and I remember there was like snoring away during it. Matt says, what if Sony does a live action of Peter Parker's Ghost Spider? I don't think they're going to want to do it. Also, a little kid is crying. The most important movie? No, thank you. I'll wait and see it at home. I remember I went through this. I went up to London to go see a family press screening of Lightyear. And it was in Leicester Square. And I mean, I think that screen can hold like 600-700 people, loads of celebrities with their families. And I just remember there was kids everywhere. And I remember it being like, holy moly, I have not been, because I will not go see a kids movie during kids' term because I just can't be doing it. I was like, that was horrendous. That was horrendous. Questions. Baba Trolley says, do you think Disney's making plans for the long term for Disney Plus than Warner Brothers did with Max? What is the difference? So Disney Plus is basically Disney's plan for the future. They know that is their hub to the home. They know that that's where people are going to watch television. They are building up Disney Plus to be the main way that people consume Disney content. They know that. That's what they're aiming for. That's what they're planning for. It is a long-term plan. The problem with Warner Brothers is HBO Max wasn't that, because Zaslav has always had his eye in the last, since basically he got involved with Warner Brothers, in selling the company. That was always the goal, was to sell it, was to strip it out and sell it. So HBO Max was never the same kind of process, because it was all about just making money in the short term. They don't care if HBO Max is around. It wasn't, the whole rebranding of it, what they're doing. Max was not they knew they had to do it and they had to have it. But at the end of the day, they were always looking to sell the company. Miles says, with Sundance kicking off on January 22nd, do we know Warner Brothers is calling a new film label by the Neon team? No idea. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't really seen. And to be honest, everything regarding Warner Brothers right now, whatever's going on there, you just have to put a big kind of note, a sticky note on it, and be like, this is temporary. This might not stick, because who's going to be the owner? Who's going to be buying it? What's going to be going on? Aaliyah, this was an interesting question. So what do you think of Iger's promise more with China. To me, it seems presumptuous, a form of rude to make such a decision knowing a new CEO is imminent. Interesting of your take. So I didn't really this one's a bit of a weird one, because for me this makes sense. I don't quite get why this was a thing, of why this is a problem. Disney has 2 theme parks in China, one in Hong Kong, one in Shanghai. I've been to both. They are fantastic. I have spent a good 6 weeks of my life touring around different places in China. It is a beautiful country. It's got 1.4, 1.6 billion people in. It is a major revenue source for them. You know, we've seen, like with Avatar, that they can make some serious dough there. Video games there are massive. Why wouldn't Disney want to be involved in making money in China? I don't quite get what there's this big hoopla of why it would be a problem. In the same way of Disney should be making money in India, it should be making money in Europe, it should be making money in Latin America, it should be making money in Africa. In the same way, it's the trouble is, there's a very much this US centric focus on the fact of everything just fits around what the US wants, and in international we all get lumbered in with one big, like, oh well, that's just international and they don't really count. But well, there's more of us. And yeah, I think, you know, Disney has to do what's right for individual regions. Now, some areas it has to focus on more than others. China and India just make so much sense for them to focus on. It's why, you know, they do D23, they did in Brazil, you know, because there's a big audience there. There's money to be made. I really don't understand why that really, it just felt a bit like Bob Iger saying water is wet. You know, we're going to invest more in China. Well, yeah, they're going to build theme parks. We're going to probably see some cruise ships. You know, they're going to have one in obviously they've got the one launching Adventurer in Singapore coming up, and then you've got one being built in Japan. Hopefully they start incorporating some cruise ships along the cruise there, get people to go see it. There's a massive market in China and across the whole of the rest of the world. Disney should not be just focusing on the US market, because there's a lot more of us outside of the US than there is inside. You know, I think you've got what, 250 million outside the rest of the world. There's another 8 billion people there, folks. There's a lot of money that, you know, can be spent on Disney merchandise and Disney movies and Disney Plus subscriptions. So why not go after China market? It just makes total sense. And you added, by chance, the new CEOs disagree with Iger. Is that the only point this year that they would be easily reversible? Why would it be reversible? Why wouldn't you want to invest in one of the biggest markets on the planet? It makes total business sense. The new CEOs, you know, at the end of the day, Iger is the CEO. He's leading the company. He has to make decisions. Whether or not the new CEO is coming in, no CEO of the major global brand is going to sit there and go, well, we don't want to. They've got 2 theme parks there. They are invested in China, and they need to be. And I don't understand why they wouldn't want to be. The world's a big place. Every region is different. In the same way that Disney should be invested in the UK, it should be invested in France, it should be invested. You know, there's certain countries that are going to be more financially viable, and you can see that, you know, they do prioritize certain countries. Here in the UK, Disney really promote it heavily because we will go on vacation there. Obviously, we'll go to America, we'll go to France. They don't tend to push the other ones, you know, big cruises. The Disney cruises come here every year now. They're in Europe every summer. They're going to be in Asia. Yeah, I personally I find like not going after China would be an absolute just, why wouldn't you want to do that? Yeah. So because of the China CCP concerns, politics, I just thought it was too huge a discussion before. See, I think I would very much disagree with that idea, because Disney, again, politics isn't just about what one country. I know that's what the media likes to, especially from one side. In the US side, it's all about them, and they are the only ones that matter. But outside of the US, you know, we do have a much more, you know, it's a big world out there, and Disney investing in China, I don't see that as a negative in any way. There's almost like this weird thing of, if Disney, I see it all the time with, if Disney announced a new park, a ride for any of the theme parks outside of Florida or California, audiences in America get like that money was being taken away from them and it should have gone to them or something. I don't know. I just find it, yeah, as a global, someone that's been around the world and sees it from that kind of thing. It's like me, the US market is my biggest market, but I have fans readers all over the world. And that's, I don't know. I find it very, yes, politics right now is very US. The US is very much looking inwards and not looking outwards. But I guess comments, at the end of the day, he's a partner with the Chinese government. And, whether or not you agree with politics and stuff, everyone, they all still have to keep making money. They all have to keep all the employees. There's still customers that want to be entertained. And politics change. Politics differs. Who's in charge now might not be in a few years' time. And again, politics is a very difficult thing, but Disney needs to be everywhere. Again, no worries. Again, it's a kind of a weird one. I think, again, it's that different thing of I definitely slide into a much more global view of, yeah, it's like now, I would even say, here's a good reason why Disney's made an investment in Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi wants to get more Western businesses to get their flags there. So Abu Dhabi, we were looking at a trip to go there because of Ferrari World, Warner Brothers World, and SeaWorld were there. So we could kind of turn it into a bit of a beach holiday with a few, I've been out to a number of Middle East countries and visited. And there's a lot of people there. There's a lot of fans. I've seen a lot of it with the Riyadh comedy market. A lot of people complaining about that. WWE gets a lot of hate for going out there. But at the end of the day, the audience that's there are getting to enjoy everything. And the best way of breaking down borders is through entertainment and through, communication and talking to each other and intermingling. If we all just bunker down and just keep to ourselves, it's going to be a very bad place. Can you say I used to be involved in politics and annoyed my grandma who passed away last year about Trump and other politics? Yeah, the thing is with everything is that it's very much politics is a difficult thing, and I think dealing with it with the family can be difficult. I think you have to be respectful of the fact that everyone has an opinion, everyone has different points of view, and everyone, you might not agree with your parents or with your uncles or anything like that, but that shouldn't define everything. There are other things that you might be able to find common ground on, and maybe as well, you just don't go near it with a bod. You just avoid it. I grew up in an area where my grandparents, we never, they were very much like, you never talk about money or politics. And I don't know if that was a bad thing because everyone kind of got on a lot better. Yeah, I don't agree with my dad on some of those things, but we can have a good talk about it. But yeah, it's and I think that's the key thing as well, is seeing it from other points of view and not just kind of one way or the highway. There's a big part of it. And American side of politics is a powder keg. It is. You've been saying a lot at the end of the day phases today. At the end of the day. Yeah, there's sometimes it just these words just come on out. But at the end of the day. So Keenan, what do you think about the High School Musical having its curated playlist to celebrate the original film's 20th anniversary? Fun? You seem to like those playlists. Because you quite often talk about them, which is great. Because personally, playlists have no interest to me because we don't have them really in the UK. They haven't launched them, so I haven't really been able to experience them. But I also, if I wanted to watch a movie, I'd just watch the movie. I wouldn't necessarily be wanting the playlist. Makes sense to put it in there. High School Musical, not my thing. I've seen the first movie. I've seen the series. I'm no interest in watching them again. Again, I was a bit older by the time they came out. I wasn't really the target audience. Kelly says Time Magazine has listed Disney and ESPN in the list of 250 iconic American companies. What are your takeaways? Yeah, if you were to say to me, like, top 10 US companies. ESPN, I don't know, I personally wouldn't that wouldn't be one of my go-tos, because again, ESPN doesn't have that same connection over here. But Disney would be there, Disney, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Microsoft, Starbucks, Walmart, those, Amazon, those kind of things, they definitely kind of slide into those ones. A lot of Hulu out there tonight. Bubba Trolling says, do you think The Mandalorian and Grogu will do as well as Star Wars movies? Will it make $1 billion? It won't do $1 billion. If it hits 500 million, that'll be a really good haul. Yeah, don't expect it to do more. If it does more than 500 million, that'll be really good. This is about restoring Star Wars to what it was. It's not a $1 billion movie. Last of the pre-done questions, and then we'll be live for the rest of the show. So feel free to keep sending those questions in. Matt says, how do you think Avengers Doomsday will do in the theaters this year? 1.5 billion. Just pulling a number out my number. There we go. Keen says, I loved High School Musical films, so that's why I put that on. Definitely. I mean, if you enjoy it, why not? And if you can have that playlist, keep going through. I can imagine that if you're just putting it on in the background and you want something on, that's a good way of doing it. I suppose we all have different ways. Sometimes I'll put like podcast on, or I'll put music on I sometimes put the odd movie on like that, where I'll put something on in the background. So I do it, but I'm not so good on television stuff. Depends what I'm doing, because if I'm writing or editing, I tend to prefer music. It's often stuff without words, because if I'm trying to write or if I'm trying to edit, I need to focus on my words and my thoughts, rather than necessarily if I've got a movie or a TV show and I'll get distracted. That's my own thing. Kelly said, unfortunately, the toothpaste can't be put back in the tube after this era ends. Yeah, well, the thing is, I mean, you're going to look at it. This era, everyone's been in a different era. Things change. Things move on. Things will be different. In 10 years' time, things could be very different for a number of different, and politics goes through it. The older I get, the more I realize things keep going around. Kelly said, I asked a Patreon question about vote. Yes, you did. It did pop up. But I did kind of do 5-10 minute on Vertigo videos in another question. So keep sending those questions in. So this will be your last call for questions, because I realize we've been going for an hour. Elias says, Avatar 3, our earnings are now 3.1 times the budget to profit, yet the earnings probably less than Avatar 2. Do you think 4 and 5 will be delayed to have more time to miss them? So I think the trouble is this kind of weird thing with Avatar 3, where the bar is so high that expectations are that if it does not do better than Avatar 2, it's a flop. And I was seeing all these takes of going, it's a massive flop, and it's like second biggest film of the year of 2025, and you call that a flop. You just, at that point, you're just fishing and for negativity for clicks. And that's, again, I think this is where my mindset is, again, why I've just got so frustrated with Twitter and deleted the app on my phone, was because there's this, the trouble is with social media is that once you start realizing that so many of these accounts are posting takes because they're just getting paid for their engagement, and they get paid because the simple truth is, if you put out something that's a normal take or a good take or reasonable, you're going to get no clicks. No one really engages with it and don't make any money out. But you come up with a bad take, or you just keep stirring the pot, that's where you make your money. And I think that's what's happened with social media, especially with Twitter and a little bit with Facebook, where negativity is everywhere, and the truth doesn't really matter as long as they get the paid. And so people will just make up anything and stir anything up. I don't have that kind of mentality where I don't like twisting everything to being negative to get clicks. I'm just not. I would make me a lot more videos and a lot more clicks, but I'm just not very good at it. I don't feel comfortable doing that. If it's a negative story, then it will have a negative headline because that's what it is. But I can't just but there's just so much rubbish on social media because, and a lot of this has come, it's got a lot worse since monetization allowing everyone to get paid for coming up with this social stuff. And I think that is one of the biggest problems with social media right now, is this whole make money off of it has just turned so many of them into just negativity sales. And yeah, you're at a point where you have to almost be like, can I do we deal with this? And I'm kind of at that point where I've just had enough of social media. And if I wasn't doing this job, I wouldn't be on it anywhere near as much. Battletron says, one thing I like about streaming is I feel like you can watch things however you want to watch it. Yeah, you can binge watch it. You can watch it when you want, when you like. Trying to watch things live. We've been watching the Traitors live at 8:00 each night on BBC. And it's kind of a weird thing of like, yeah, you binge it at your pace, and like having to wait a week for less episodes is a bit weird now. You kind of get used to it. We just finished off the Netflix series. Was it Hit Missing Girls or something like that? That's come out, a British one. That was good. Just finished off the second season of Red Eye, which is on Hulu in the US. We're just making our way through His and Hers on Netflix at the minute. So there's lots of great shows at the minute. Matt says, do you think Scrubs will be a good remake? Maybe. I'm not gonna lie, I was not a huge Scrubs fan. So I'm not really that bothered. Kelly says, what are your thoughts on Drew winning the WWE title on SmackDown? Personally, I think it's a good move since Rhodes and McIntyre were risk of getting scared. So this was great because I forgot that it was in Germany, and so was able to watch it live on SmackDown. And I think it was the right move. I think McIntyre needed a big win. He keeps coming up. He didn't win like it Clash at the Castle. So I think there's a kind of thing of, we did need a shake-up. I don't think Rhodes going into WrestleMania was really that exciting. I don't think Rhodes versus I think everyone was a bit like, oh, he's going to WrestleMania, and nothing really mattered. Whereas this is shake it up. I think it's great for Drew. I think it's exactly what he needed. Miles says, the new movie Psycho Killer could get a Super Bowl spot as it's only released shortly after the end big game. They might do an online campaign. I doubt they'll put a trailer out during the actual Super Bowl, because those trailers usually cost a couple million, and that's probably what the budget of the movie was. So they might not want to spend that much on it. Matt says, do you think Disney will split the shows the same day as linear TV and next day? I think while they're still focused on the US cable networks, I don't think next day is going to be going anywhere for a few years. Kelly says, I know YouTube was one of the first ones to make hate or misinformation a profiting machine. That's why I appreciate folks like you, Cool Cut and News, Michael Saves, for being positive, neutral. I definitely think being neutral is the better way of being. I mean, I like to give my take on stuff, and sometimes I don't like stuff. Sometimes I do like stuff. Sometimes I'm neutral. I think my one key takeaway of like anything like with YouTube or anything like that is, if you have got a channel where all they are doing is basically just crapping all over a product, one video after another video after another video after another video, and it's going on for months and months and years, you get to a certain point of going, do they actually like this anymore, or are they just farming it for money? There's been a few channels where there's one recently with Warhammer where I was just like, oh, I just went not interested in this channel anymore, because every single video was just, don't like this, 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 this is horrible, this is bad, this is bad. It's like, well, why bother with this anymore then? And it's the same thing with Disney. It's like, if you don't like Marvel anymore, you know what? Don't watch it. If you don't like Star Wars anymore, don't watch it. Just watch the originals. Just, and I totally get, like, a new show can come out or a new movie comes out and you're going to do a review of it, and it might be like, okay, I didn't like this. I didn't think it was very good. Fine. but don't then do 15, 20 videos about how much you hated it. One's enough. To be honest, I've got to a point where sometimes I've done it with a few movies where or TV shows where I was doing a review and I started watching it and I got back, and I'm like, I remember there was one show, and I was like, I got like through episode 1, I thought that was awful, and there was another 7 episodes left, and I was just like, you know what, my life's too short to waste another 7 hours on this rubbish. I just didn't bother doing a review because I was just like, I don't like it. I'm not wasting my time. It was just like, it's a bit of I mean, if I start watching a movie, I will at least try and get through to the end of it. But I mean, Poor Things is a prime example of a movie I turned off after 20 minutes and was just like, I'm not wasting another hour of my life on this. Elias says, I don't think Disney would delay Avatar 4, yet if it performs less than projected, even if it makes a profit, I think it might delay Avatar 5. I think the big problem here, I don't think it's necessarily Disney. I wonder whether or not James Cameron might be tired and might want to do something different. He might be thinking, actually, I want to do something different. He's getting on a bit. He might be thinking, do I really want to spend the rest of my life doing this? Because to me as well, as Avatar 3 kind of ended, they could leave it there. Or maybe he passes off Avatar 4 to a new director. But I don't know. I mean, look at what's happened with Terminator. He might want to have control in it. I don't know. I mean, personally, I think if they left it, leave it for a bit. I think the trouble is, I think it's just so expensive to make. I think that's the problem. Matt says, do you think there's going to be more National Geographic? Probably not. I think we're going to see a lot less from them. We already seen. The trouble is they're no longer trying to fill those networks up with cheap television. Those days are gone. The days when we had ice truckers and fish people and bounty hunters and critic vets and a vet in the north and a vet in Alaska and a vet in. Those shows aren't profitable anymore. There's not enough viewership of them, and cable's not bringing enough viewership. So National Geographic now is just about kind of almost giving us, some good documentaries, and it's a good part of a suite of, the Disney Plus needs documentaries. ABC News is doing great, and I think National Geographic can deliver some great stuff. But now it's about delivering better stuff less frequently. Okay, so speaking of linear, I find it interesting that Keeping Up with the Kardashians is coming to Hulu since Versat is licensing library content. I know that the show was previously owned by NBC before Versant. Personally, I think it made a lot of sense for them to do this because, again, the Kardashians are one of the most watched shows on Hulu and Disney Plus. So it would make, and those old shows, the value of them is just declining year on year because they're all getting older. Is there a huge amount of demand for people going back and watching the first season of Keeping Up with the Kardashians? How much of that is relevant? So it's a diminishing returns on that show. So you might as well try and make some money off of it. I also wouldn't be surprised if Versant does next day rights deal for Hulu regarding first run shows on USA Network SG. I think they'll probably want to keep that with Peacock. I think the Kardashians was just a one-off kind of thing. Right. Okay. So on that note, guys, I'm going to call it a night on there. So if you, so again, I'll be back next week for another Q&A. Be sure to check that one out. Again, a big thank you to everyone for joining in on the live chat, including Caled, Matt, Aaliyah. We also got Baba Trolling, Ricardo, Miles, Sosuna, I think Keenan. Hopefully I've got everyone. Sorry if I've missed you. Knoxwave. I think that's everybody. Again, big thank you for everyone. And again, I'll be back throughout the week. And throughout the week, there'll be new videos going up regarding different news and stuff. So feel free to keep an eye out for that. And on that note, guys, thank you very much. See you guys soon. Peace out. Toodaloo.